Good morning, everybody, and it is your last session for this week on our call task on the extract from the island at the end of everything. So we are going to finish our questions on 2D first of all, and so we'll be making inferences from the text and justifying those with evidence. So we're using the skills from Priscilla. So first of all, there we're looking at monitoring what you learn from the words. So using Marna's skills, there's that key vocabulary, understand what its root word means, is there any prefixes or suffixes that change the word class. We're thinking about words that are similar in meaning, words that are opposite in meaning, to show our understanding, and then further deepening our understanding by visualising in our minds and thinking about what we learn from the illustrations and the text. We're also adding in our questions and asking things that are relevant to really help us understand what we've learned, and then that equals overall our final, and that really informs our predictions and our inferences. So our ability to understand what is happening and why this is happening and what might continue to happen. So we're thinking about putting ourselves into the character's shoes, think about how they feel, what are they thinking, and how that makes us feel as a reader. We'll be highlighting key information in the extract to help us inform our answers for the questions. We're going to be asking questions about the text to make us think about what those inferences might be, and then think about what maybe the overall theme is and what those really important parts of that paragraph is by kind of drawing up a summary of what's going on in the text. So first of all, we're going to read through the text again. We're really familiar with this now. We should be reading this also independently at home and have a chance in class as well. It only takes the builders 4 days to construct Mr. Zamora's hut. Once they install a bolt on the door, he moves in straight away. He spends his days and nights in the hut. Sometimes we hear hammering inside, and I think he must be hanging his butterfly collection. He orders the men back to build him a separate workshop, with just such precise specifications. I hear one of the builders complaining it will take them 3 times as long. Laurie and I spend all our time together. We play hopscotch and hide and seek and sit next to each other in class. The boys are very loud, so Kidlap comes to play with us a lot. He'll stop crying so much and even laugh sometimes. I mentioned him in my letter to Nanny, so hopefully she can tell his parents I'm looking after him. Soon after Mr. Zamora moves into his hut, a quiet, cat-eyed woman called Mayumi arrives to help Sister Teresa with the housework, but Mayumi spends less time cleaning and more time helping Luca with cooking. She also stays with him in his little hut, which makes the nun suck her teeth. Mr. Zamora only emerges from his hut to walk down to town. He does this every day at 10 in the morning. He is back just after morning lessons end. We hear him whistling tunelessly, and he goes into his hut with a box under his arm. So, we are finishing our questions on Inference Day, so questions 3, 4 and 5. So number 3, based on what you have read, why do you think Mr. Zamora only emerges from his hut to walk down to town? Number 4, how is Mr. Zamora made to seem secretive? And number 5, look at paragraph 2. What impressions do you get of the writer? You need to give 2 impressions using evidence from the text to support your answer. Have a go at these independently. You should pause the video now so that you can have a go at those, and then we can discuss the answers and you can edit and improve if you need to. So question number 3, based on what you have read, why do you think Mr. Zamora only emerges from his hut to walk down to town? So when I read this question, I'm making sure I'm reading this clause in the context. So I'm reading around this clause as well to get a really good, deeper understanding of why I think Mr. Zamora only comes out of his hut to walk down to town. And I know that emerges is telling me that he's coming out. So I'm also showing my understanding of the vocabulary that's being used in that sentence. Mr. Zamora spends his days and nights in the hut, which tells me that he is very dedicated to his project and somewhat obsessed with it, and this supports the idea why he only leaves his hut for a short break, because he wants to spend all of his time working. The text also suggests that Mr. Zamora doesn't like to spend time with people because of the lock fitted to his hut. This tells me that he is a private person and does not like to socialise with us, which also explains why he only leaves his hut at times that only benefit himself. So my answer goes into greater depth, showing why I think Mr. Zamora only comes out of his hut to walk down to town. He's very dedicated, so he's very committed to his project, which also suggests that he's really obsessed with it, and that's why he doesn't leave his hut that much at all. And the fact that he got a lock fitted not only suggests to me that he wants his work to be private and he doesn't want anybody to go into his hut without his permission. He also just likes to be by himself, and that also tells me that he doesn't want to have anybody around him. He doesn't want to socialise. He just wants to be in by himself. And the only times that he emerges is to do something that benefits himself. So he seems quite a selfish man as well to me. Moving on to question number 4. How is Mr. Zamora made to seem secretive? So in that question, I am understanding what the word secretive is. I'm thinking about what the root word is. The root word is secret. And what is a secret? A secret is something that is kept to yourself and nobody really knows about it. It's quite unknown, and it's kept to Mr. Zamora himself. Nobody else knows about it. That Mrs. Zamora is made to seem secretive because he had a bolt installed on the door, and he also spends his days and nights in there, which suggests that he doesn't interact with many people. So because he had his bolt put onto the door, it suggests that he doesn't want anybody to be in there. He wants to keep everything private to himself, quite secretive. He doesn't want anybody else to know what is going on inside of his hut. So question number 5, we had to look at paragraph 2. It is really important that we are referring back to the text. We are making our reading and our extract maybe a bit messy, or if you're obviously working on Teams, we can split our screen and maybe highlight that paragraph to show exactly, this is where I'm looking, this is where I need to focus, this is where I'm going to get my answers from. Just like maths, we can make it as messy as possible because it's going to help us pull out our answers to inform our answers, Hatterley. Sorry. Okay, so what impressions do you get of the writer? And you had to write 2 impressions, and then you had to use evidence from the text to support that. So I, first of all, have listed 4 here, so you could have had these. You may have had more, so if you're in class, get your teacher's assurance that, yes, that is a valid impression. And if at home, if you need to just check in with a teacher to see if your answer is correct, they'll give you feedback on that. So number 1, I've written that the writer is playful, and the evidence to support that is in italics here. So I've made all of my impressions in normal font, and then in italics is the evidence from the text that support my impression. The writer is playful, and I know this because he plays hopscotch and hide and seek. Number 2, the writer is caring. Hopefully she can tell his parents I am looking after him. We already knew that, we already monitored, the word hopefully, which makes her come across as a positive person, and looking after him, taking care of him, suggests obviously that she's a caring person, which then leads us to the point that the writer is a positive person based on the word hopefully that we have already monitored, as I've just said. And number 4, the writer loves to spend time with her new friend, and the evidence to support that impression is Marie and I spend all our time together. So impressions are the things that we learn about the writer, and these are the things that we do learn in that paragraph. So our next objective for our final questions are to identify and explain how information, narrative, content is related and contributes to meaning as a whole. So that content domain is 2F, and we are looking at Camel and Colin. And this one is a bit tricky. So have a really good go at these questions independently, and then come back to the video so that you can have that discussion with us, looking at the answers, and then edit and improve if you need to. So the question is, why has the writer told you about Mr. Zamora's daily routine of going into town? Now, picking up on the words that are in that question, we've got the routine, and why has the writer told you about that walk in particular? What is the significance of it? What is important? Why has the writer decided that the reader needs to know that Mr. Zamora goes into town and comes back every day to his hut? Have a go at that independently, using the text to help you inform your answers, and come back and we can go through the answer. So I should pause now. Okay. So why has the writer told you about Mr. Zamora's daily routine? Why is he going into town every day? Why? It makes the reader question, doesn't it? Okay, and the actual text tells us the significance of his trip into town. So my answer is the writer has told you about Mr. Zamora's routine walk into town because when he returns, he always brings back a box. And this box is of significance. It's really important because the writer must be curious and intrigued by what is inside of it, which therefore makes us as readers intrigued. We're hooked, we're interested, we're captivated by maybe what's inside of this box. Then Quentin, the questioner, comes out, what could it be? Sorry, as well, a bit of grammar. The writer has told you about Mr. Zamora's routinely walk into town. Okay, so if you didn't get a similar answer to that, you should be going back and improving with Purple Pen, or you should be looking at using Purple Font on Teams. The next question is based on making a prediction. So we know how we make our predictions. We're using all of our monitoring of vocabulary. We're using our visualizations, all the questions that that the text makes us think of, and then that overall informs what we think might happen next. So the content domain is 2E, to make predictions based on the details stated and implied. So we're going off what we have read in this extract to inform an answer. Our question is, based on what you have read, and only that, because that's what the question is asking us, what do you think is inside the box that Mr. Zamora brings back from his daily walk into town? So really the importance is that it's a daily walk into town. So every day he's bringing something back inside this box. So what could he be bringing back every single day that's of importance to him? Okay, think about what he does inside of his hut. He spends the majority of his time there. Use the text to help inform your answer. Just pause now, have a go at that independently, and then we'll discuss the answer. Okay, so my prediction and yours might be different, and this is absolutely fine as long as you've used the clues and the text to inform an answer. So, based on the fact that Mr. Zamora brings a box back with him every day, and he works consistently and constantly on his butterfly project, I predict that the box contains items that will aid his work and help create the correct environment to do his job correctly. So to enable him to do his job effectively, he must be maybe going into town to pick something up in order to help his project and move it forward. So that was my prediction. So this doesn't mean that your prediction is incorrect, because it's what I think based on the clues in the text. You may have thought something different, but as long as I say you've used the evidence from the text to support your answer, you'll get feedback on Teams from that. And then if you have written on paper pack at home as well, we can give you feedback over the phone to parents. Okay, you've also got the content domain 2G, to identify and explain how meaning is enhanced through the choices of words and phrases. So this is the monitor again, monitoring that key vocabulary, understanding what it means and getting that really deeper meaning from it. How is the text enhanced? How has it improved your understanding? So the questions are, number 1, what does the sentence, once they install a bolt on the door, he moves in straight away, tell you about Mr. Zamora? And number 2, how do the words, but Mayumi spends less time cleaning and more time helping Lupo, help you to form an impression of Mayumi? So what do you learn about her? Have a go at those independently and then come back to discuss the answers with me, and then you can edit and improve if you need to. Should pause the video now. Okay, so number 1, what does the sentence, once they install a bolt on the door, he moves in straight away, tell you about Mr. Zamora? So we've learned quite a lot about Mr. Zamora throughout this in this extract. And we know that he loves routine, he's very regimented, he's quite controlling, he likes perfection because he likes precise specifications. So, and my answer, what the clause tells me, once they install a bolt on the door, he moves in straight away. Tell you about Mr. Zamora. So this tells me that Mr. Zamora is a private man and may not like to be disturbed while he is working. It also tells me that he does not want other people inside of his hut, and he does not want to share what he is doing inside of his workspace with the others at the orphanage. He wants to keep it to himself. It's private, it's secretive. Okay? Moving on, question number 2. How do the words "but Mayumi spends less time cleaning and more time helping Luca" help you to form an impression of Mayumi? So what idea do we get of her character? And supporting it with the evidence that's in our text, which this sentence, we've been given the sentence actually to form this impression. So this helps me form an impression of Mayumi because she was meant to support Sister Teresa with the housework. However, instead of helping with the cleaning, she has spent her time cooking with Luca, which makes her seem defiant and stubborn. That is the impression that I get. She's decided that she doesn't want to really help with the cleaning. She's not doing much of that. She's actually spending more time helping Luca getting the food together for the children at the orphanage. So that kind of like makes me think that she's maybe quite stubborn and doesn't want to listen much to instructions, which makes her defiant. So if you have got something similar, well done. And if you need to build on your answer by adding in what we've discussed here, please do that in your editing improvement with your purple pen or with your purple font, please, on Teams. So that is your call task complete. A marvellous, well done, good job, brilliant. And we will crack on following our talked reading sequence next week, where we'll have our full 5 days of reading. And I know that tomorrow is your MasterChef bread competition, so have an amazing time doing that. I can't wait to see all your pictures and wonderful bread. Okay, well done, guys.